lovelies, Jennifer Ziliotto here. I'm back from a 3-week holiday in France. I had such a lovely time. I saw my in-laws, I saw my son who lives there, stayed with a friend, the French Riviera, have a lot of fun things coming up soon on the website. But I wanted to talk about something kind of fun today. On the flight over, I watched this movie, this French film that I had never even heard of. It was one of those like, oh, sure, why not? Let's check out this film. And it was so inspiring. I was kind of awestruck and I thought about it a lot while I was there. It was a film about food and I was so excited to get into the kitchen and do a lot of cooking, which I was able to do. So on the flight back, I thought, wouldn't it be fun today if I talked to you about my top 10 movies about food? So that's what we're gonna do in today's Style Fix video. Number 10, that is Like Water for Chocolate. This is a Mexican film that I saw years ago, but I remember what I loved about this movie was the whole idea that your passion and your love for someone can be felt through food. And I remember having a moment where I related to that because my Nonna, my Italian grandmother, I honestly felt the love in her food. And anytime I have a dinner party or a dish that I have to make for somebody and I feel kind of nervous about it, I take a moment and I just breathe in the love and put it into the food. And 9 times out of 10, it works out beautifully. And actually, I'm inspired to go back and rewatch that film. Number 9, that is Vatel. This is a film, another old film, based on the French chef François Vatel. 17th century France. A prince has to impress Louis XIV and gives the task of creating a 3-day feast to Vatel. It is over the top. It is visually a feast for the eyes and absolutely gorgeous. And if you like period pieces like I do, then you will love this film if you haven't seen it already. Number 8 on my list, and that is Sideways. I'm sure you've seen this film. It was huge when it came out. So much fun, set in California, in wine country. And yes, it's not really a movie about food and more about wine, but inspiring nonetheless. What I loved about it was, first of all, it makes you want to go to wine country in California and taste a good Pinot Noir. But also because it kind of brought, I remember feeling a bit of a fascination of this idea that good food and good wine really bring people together, no matter who they are. So that's what I found inspiring about that film. Number 7, another old film. I'm sure you've seen it. Stanley Tucci, The Big Night, or Big Night rather, set in New Jersey about 2 brothers who own a restaurant and they bring authentic Italian cuisine to New Jersey, which is basically American Italian food. And they're frustrated. Their restaurant is not doing really well. And they put on this big meal on one big night, one big event. And what's amazing about this film, not to spoil it if you haven't seen it, but there's a moment at the end that has this elegant simplicity of this delicious plate that they put together. And it makes you realize, yes, you can have the most incredible food, the most elaborate dishes, but sometimes the simplest things are what are best. Number 6, The 100-Foot Journey. I've read the book. I loved it. It's based on an Indian family who have a restaurant in India and suffer this terrible tragedy and end up moving to France and open up a restaurant in a small town across from this haute cuisine restaurateur, Helen Mirren, who is not the nicest character, shall we say. And it really is this kind of juxtaposition between funness, the colorfulness, the spiciness of Indian food against the backdrop of this rather snobby, pretentious, set in tradition French cuisine. It's a lot of fun, a great book, but also a fantastic movie. Number 5 on my list is the movie Burnt. Such a good film. It's Bradley Cooper, who is a chef in Paris in a high-end restaurant, and his career totally goes downhill because he's a drug addict and a partier, and unfortunately so many chefs this happens to. And he works his way back up, moves to London. He wants to get a Michelin star, and he works his way back up. And what's great about this movie is if you're not familiar with haute cuisine or Michelin star restaurants or any of that world, this is really a beautiful insight into that world. It's so full of discipline, it's so strict, there's so much pressure, and it's a lot of fun to watch, especially if you're curious about this side of the culinary world. Next, we have the movie Chef, number 4 on my list. Now, I have to say, this is a family favorite. My husband, if you don't know, is a restaurateur. My son is a chef. My daughter works at my husband's restaurant, and I sometimes work at my husband's restaurant. And we watched this as a family movie night, and we all fell in love with this idea of getting a food truck and crossing the country. Jon Favreau is the main character, and he's a chef that's a little bit bitter, I want to say. He's kind of lost his creative juices, and he and his son and his sous chef cross the country in a food truck. It's the early days of social media, and they become hugely sought after, and it's a lot of fun. It really is a feel-good kind of movie. It's a lot of fun and really inspiring, and like I said, a family favorite of ours. Kind of like our little secret dream of something that we would love to do. Number 3 on my list is, of course, Julie and Julia. I am a huge fan of Julia Child. I just love her. She's such an inspiration. And Meryl Streep plays Julia Child and does so well, so beautifully, so perfectly. Julia Child's life was so interesting. What an amazing personality. You've probably seen this film, based on the food blogger Julie, who recreates over the course of a year Julia Child's dishes. It's so much fun, it's so inspiring, and it really makes you want to revisit some of those classic French dishes. Coq au vin, boeuf bourguignon, even just learning a basic bechamel sauce. All of it is in that movie. It's so much fun and really, really inspiring. Number 2 on my list is another family favorite. I have to say, we actually rewatched it recently over the Christmas holidays, and that is Ratatouille. Even if you don't have kids and haven't seen this movie, it's totally worth it. It is so much fun. It's really funny. And just to see the kitchen alone in the restaurant in Paris is worth watching the movie. It's clever, it's funny, there's of course a bunch of cliches, but that are kind of really true. We laughed so hard rewatching it recently. It's a must-see. Number 2 on my list. And finally, number 1 on my list is the movie I saw on the flight over to France. Honestly, it was one of those movies where I didn't know anything about it. It's a French movie. Juliette Binoche is in it. It won Best Director at the Cannes Film Festival this past year, and the food is really the star of the show. It's set in the 1850s, I want to say, and it's a love story. It's beautiful. The food is incredible. It's elaborate. The kitchen is stunning. All the pots and pans they use are gorgeous. It's really inspiring, and it's really a beautiful story about how two people come together around food. Beautiful, lovely, and oh so romantic. So voila, my friends, there you have it. My top 10 list of movies based on food. I hope this inspired you. Please let me know what your favorite movie is in the comments down below about food, or a movie that you think I should see that's about food that I haven't mentioned on the list. Lots of fun stuff coming soon on the website, so stay tuned for that. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. And then, of course, for more inspiration about style, about food, about what I'm cooking, then don't forget to follow me on Facebook and on Instagram.